We're going to get right to it. We have a particularly notable guest on the pod today for all you curiouser and curiouser Herle Burly-ites. A man with one of those CVs that can make you question why you even have a CV. Rahm Emanuel is here. I'll just dramatically précis this in the interest of time. Advisor to President Bill Clinton, elected and then re-elected 3 more times to the U.S. House of Representatives. House Democratic Caucus Chair, Chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, White House Chief of Staff under President Barack Obama, 55th Mayor of Chicago, former United States Ambassador to Japan. And it's a CV that's still in progress, I might add. So today, I want to talk a little bit more about Mr. Emanuel's backstory and what motivates his political life, the changing role the U.S. is playing on the world stage, how Democrats can reconnect with working people to form a new winning voter coalition, and how Mr. Trump is changing the Canada-U.S. relationship, and Mr. Emanuel's thoughts on our Prime Minister's diplomatic approach, and whatever else comes up in the time that we have him. So, Rahm Emanuel, my God, thank you for carving out some time to talk to us today on the Herle Burly.
Thank you. Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I know it's supposed to be the other way around.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the title Herle Burly? What's the history on that?
Well, my last name is Herle.
Okay.
Right. And the clever marketing people that you met before this pod started invented the name.
Okay. I got your last name. I wasn't sure why they thought Herle Burly was going to be the.
Well, because I'm kind of a unruly, unkempt person, bit of a hurly-burly myself, a bit of a commotion of things. I'm generally not welcomed in polite company.
Yeah, well. Yeah. Let's see if we can keep that, and let's not. Okay.
I'm just going to put this out there. Maybe TELUS should have called it their Sustainable, Clean Canadian Energy Sovereign AI Factory. Kind of a long name, maybe a little unwieldy, but true nonetheless. I know when the concept of AI and data centers is discussed, climate-conscious Canadians are quick to remind people of the potential environmental cost of AI, which, if not properly considered, could be concerning. But sustainability has long been a core value for our presenting sponsor. So it's not at all surprising that they made their new sovereign AI factory in Rimouski, Quebec, sustainable by design. Most AI data centers are a strain on the electricity grid. If you've done any reading about the AI boom, you know that's putting it mildly. Well, this one has achieved LEED Gold certification for a high level of environmental and energy efficiency. It's powered by over 99% renewable energy, primarily clean Quebec hydro. That means 4 times less water is used when compared to traditional data centers, equating to 17 million liters saved per year. It all results in some pretty impressive sustainability data. Annual energy savings of over 10.5 million kilowatt hours compared to the industry average. 2,500 tons of CO2 saved every year, or enough to power 11,000 Canadian homes. And a power usage effectiveness, or PUE, score of 1.17, which may sound like an esoteric number, but it's far and away the gold standard in the industry. 26% more efficient than the global data center average. All right, we're done with numbers. I'm just going to beat the drum to close this off. We have an abundance of clean power in this country. We have the talent here at home. And now, with TELUS' sovereign facility at the mouth of the Rimouski River, Canada has the infrastructure to lead the world in secure and sustainable AI. You come from a very successful family in a number of different endeavors, but you're the only person that was in public life among your parents or siblings. What was it that attracted you to politics in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a home, an immigrant Jewish home. My dad came from Israel after the War of Independence. My grandfather on my mother's side comes to Chicago in 1914, big organizer in labor, steel worker, meat cutter, etc. And my mother, when they moved from Israel back to Chicago, 59, runs CORE, Congress on Racial Equality in Chicago. And so family dinners were about politics and current events. And
Okay.
so that was kind of the breast milk I got fed on. And then I think being a Jew, one of the tzedakah is about giving to others, and that is an important ethos in our family. It's also an important ethos in the Jewish faith that if you save one life, you've saved humanity. And I thought, if I'm going to do something in public life, if I'm going to do something with my life, helping other people is a worthy part of your short time here on Earth. And so, now I got to be honest, you didn't, you know, it may come as a shock to your listeners. So in high school, I take up ballet, and I almost became a ballet dancer. Had a scholarship to Joffrey Ballet School. And then in college, I didn't take it. I decided, early childhood, and then I went into kind of child psychology. And then one summer job, I worked in kind of politics. And I said, well, this is what I love. And then you listen to all the, you should follow your passion. Well, this is what I loved. And now my ballet partner, who is still a dear friend, said, we all knew you were going to do politics. I did not know. But anyway, that's kind of the genesis of it. Now, lastly, I'm smiling because when I was dating my wife, I told her, who was not political in any way, we were fixed on a blind date. She's an art historian. I told her I would never run for public life.
Yeah.
So I'm
It's a good thing to say when you're courting somebody.
Yeah, I'm 0 for 6 on that. On the other hand, I told her we will live some point in our lives together. We'll live overseas. And I got under the wire with Japan. So I think 3 years in Japan, 6 races, kind of balances out. That's the way I look at it. I'm 50-50 or 1 for 7.
I'm going to side with you and say she got a good deal out of it.
Yeah, she got. Yeah. It's been a ride. So anyway, so that's kind of, but it's really about, and I think about, things like we were the first city in America that if you got a B average of 3.0 in high school, we made community college free. No city had done that, but we made kindergarten, pre-K universal. We added.
This is when you were mayor.
When I was mayor in Chicago.
Yeah.
We added more time to a child's education than any other city in America ever. 4 years. So there's a lot of things that, I think, and our graduation rates went from the mid 50s up to 84%, that you can be very proud of, and that's worthy of, your tenure here on Earth before you become dust.
So all of us who've gotten anywhere have had some good fortune in our lives.
Yeah.
How did you stumble across Bill Clinton?
Well, actually, so let me start with your first question. I think the biggest fortune in my life was nearly dying. I was 17 years old, and I was working as a meat cutter, trying to make money to go to college. And I had 5 blood infections, 2 bone infections, gangrene. I almost died. I was in the hospital for 7 weeks, had 3 roommates that died. And that fundamentally transformed my life. That's my good fortune. And because I was a screw up, and in high school I really didn't apply myself. And that it's not like Beethoven's Ninth opened and the clouds opened up and light came out and from the rain, but those nights where you couldn't sleep it just changed my life. Now, to the core about Bill Clinton, in the late 80s, I am political director of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. The chairman is Congressman Burl-Anthony from Arkansas. So we used to go to Arkansas when we were traveling and recruiting. And I got to meet this guy called Governor Bill Clinton. And we stayed in touch. He then, as governor, comes up to Chicago when Vince Lane, who's head of the Public Housing Authority, and we had a massive mess. He comes up when Vince decides to move in to public housing and take it over with police permanently in public housing. And Clinton and I start to see eye to eye, etc. And I was 30, single, and I decided, okay, I want to get this out of my bloodstream. I want to work for a presidential. Bill Clinton, I thought, in 1992, after what happened with the Caucus, Mondale, and Jimmy Carter, was the right kind of Democrat. The rest is history.
Right, sure is. So you're unusual in the sense that you have been at the peak. Well, you're unusual in a number of respects, but you've been at the peak of both backroom politics and elected politics. And which do you prefer?
Well, I think actually, I don't know if I would. I like being in both because you can influence public policy, politics. I suppose let me twist your question. Being mayor was both the greatest job I ever had and the worst job I ever had. And you can say that also. A close runner-up would be chief of staff. And as I used to say when I was chief of staff, thank God it's Friday. 2 more work days till Monday. The other comment I used to say was the White House is family friendly to the first family.
Right.
But um, if I had it, I mean, if I had preference, I like being out front. I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable, and in America, Chicago is probably the most power was. They've changed it after I left. The most powerful mayoral position in the country. And it's a big city, big shoulders, and a mayor had the schools, the community colleges, the airports, police, fire, housing, libraries, public transportation, parks. It's a powerful job. You're both mayor and president of the city council. So legally, constitutionally, historically, a consolidation of power. And you can then do something with that, etc., or not. And so, but I mean, as I said, like we created the first ever free community college. 20,000 kids have used it, graduated from community college with no debt. 3/4 of them are the first in the family to go to college. That is something you can do that is so, the sense in families, relief in the parents' eyes, etc., and the difference in those kids' lives. I've run into kids every day who went that, and then we did a program called Chicago Star Plus, which is if you kept the B average in community college, DePaul, Loyola, schools around here would give you 30 to 40% off of your what would be the equivalent to your junior, senior year. So kids were graduating with minimal debt, if no debt, and you made the American dream more accessible. And so that's rewarding. On the other hand, you go to the other side. I made a practice, so I felt it, of whenever a child was shot, would visit the family or the child in the hospital. And you don't know the Yiddish word neshama, but it's your soul, your gut. And you do that with some frequency, and you just don't have anything left in you. And my kids knew that if I had to race out one night or leave the Sabbath table to go deal with something, an officer shot, a young child leaving a park district facility, they scattered when I got home because it was so just so debilitating to the soul. I thought it was important though to see it, to be part of it, to not make it a number or whatever. But dang. On the other hand, you also created for the first time ever free pre-K. And so it had the best of things and the worst of things. Through the best of times and the worst of times. But I liked doing it.
Listening to you talk about it, I have to wonder, do you ever bug your brother about what a shallow, superficial life he's led?
Which one? As I always say, Zeke is a great allergist, etc. And one of the premier on public health, I used to say, Zeke's idea of bedside manner is you're going to die. Could be 3 weeks, could be 3 months. That was like, not like, look, or like, you're going to die. Okay. Now, no, everyone.
I'm just bugging.
No, but I do, I give Ari, I know what you mean by, I think Ari would agree with you about the shallowness of Hollywood. But you don't know this, it's been written. Ari and I, first of all, growing up, were roommates because the eldest child in a Jewish home gets everything and everybody else gets hand-me-downs. Um, but on a serious note, Ari has very severe dyslexia. And, to do a job that when he started required reading scripts, I mean, he'd get up at 3 in the morning because he couldn't make it through like anybody else at
Right.
6 or 7. So the stamina, the determination. Now, he would agree with us about Hollywood and kind of entertainment. He wouldn't. He'd probably be not only agree with us, probably be more vocal about it.
Right.
But every one of us picks something to do in public life, whether that's public health, public service,
Right.
or somewhat the cultural space.
It's interesting.
Although I
One,
don't exact,
what,
exact, I
yeah.
don't exactly think of UFC fighting as a cultural space. Okay.
Well, my God, it's now a political thing.
Mhm.
Um, they now introduce presidents at conventions and things. So this is Thanksgiving week. In the American mind, Thanksgiving is a uniquely American holiday, big and secular and embedded in the country's foundational lore. In Canada, Thanksgiving is more understated, with a somewhat different but similar history, pointedly celebrated more than a month earlier. What Canadian has not grinned and told an American that no, Thanksgiving is over? It was weeks ago. And anyway, Thanksgiving is in fact celebrated all over the world. In Liberia, Thanksgiving celebrates the country's founding by freed American slaves. In Japan, Thanksgiving honors labor, production, and peace. Austria, Germany, and Switzerland all hold Erntedankfest, Harvest Thanksgiving Festival, in early October. In South India, it's called Pongal. Great Britain has a version, so does one of Australia's territories. The point is, giving thanks is a good thing. It's an act of humility. It's uniting. It allows us to reflect on good fortune and the fact that in Canada, we take for granted an abundance that much of the world cannot imagine. Our sponsor, CN, is thankful. It is thankful for its more than 17,000 Canadian railroaders and their families living in communities across a storied coast to coast network that literally helped build our nation and continues to move our economy. CN is thankful for the work those employees put in and their families who support them 7 days a week, 365 days a year, through ferocious summer heat and bone frosting winter cold. Some of them were out moving cargo this week while their families enjoyed a Thanksgiving meal. That's the job. As noted, Thanksgiving is about gratitude for successful harvests. CN has been the prime mover of Canadian grain harvests for more than a century. It's thankful for having been able to do so. Canada is coping with turbulence and stress right now. This too shall pass. But CN and its railroaders are a constant. They will be there, keeping the economy moving, as they do, come what may. Thankfully. I got one more backward-looking question, which is, something that some of us obsess about. If
Yeah.
you'd been running the Democratic Party, would the Biden situation have been handled differently?
Yeah. I don't know. Let me say this. I mean, to I I don't know. I think look, I was honored to be asked to be ambassador to Japan. I was 8,000 miles away, 12 hours difference. I've had the honor of working two presidents directly in the West Wing. One as chief of staff, one as senior advisor. Uh, I joke. I started those jobs 6'4" and 250 pounds. I'm now 5'8" and 148 dripping wet. Um, but I've always spoken my mind. And in fact, early on with President Clinton, First Lady tried to get me fired because of my honesty. That doesn't mean, the one thing I know about White Houses is the Oval Office is incredibly seductive.
Oh, no kidding.
It drips of power, and that's an aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
And that's true for the White House, West Wing as a whole, and the West Wings are also insular. I also know that. And so one of the things you got to push against is those two kind of threads. That's just a hypothetical, and I don't have the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about Trump?
Assuming that the question was about would it have gone
Getting
all?
him out. I mean,
That's
I
what
mean,
I
it was.
assumed the question
I
was about.
I know that you're friend. I know that you're obviously close with Axelrod. David's been a friend of this podcast.
Yeah.
He was on a year and a half into the Biden administration, and we were agreeing at that point that it was impossible for him to run again.
Well,
Right?
that's one thing. The other thing I'm actually thinking about it slightly. I always think about it that, but I think of it also slightly different, if I could. And I mean this by I was answering both that and something else, and I should probably be more explicit about something else.
Okay.
I start my relationship with Joe Biden. I'm in the Clinton White House, and he and I are working on the assault weapon ban and the Violence Against Women Act. It was my assignment to get those passed. I worked with Joe Biden not only passing the Violence Against Women Act, the crime bill, putting 100,000 community police officers. I'm also responsible in the White House later on Operation Gatekeeper on the border with San Diego, Operation Safeguard down in Nogales, Arizona. Joe Biden, when I'm mayor, the first time in a decade Chicago adds beds for domestic violence, Joe Biden comes and breaks ground at that facility. And I say that by way of that's how we know each other. And also, obviously, not just aide to senator, then chief of staff to vice president, whose office is next door. And I think I know Joe Biden and what was going on, let's say, at the border or on cultural issues that were dominating kind of the outlook from the White House on a whole host of cultural issues. I just know a different guy now. Whether he's decided to change his position on things, as he did when he came out before President Obama on marriage equality, that's possible. Possible. But I think appreciating where I think the White House at that time in his presidency missed the cultural landscape and got Democrats, in my view, off on a tangent where they were missing the larger dialogue. Do I think I would have gotten into the White House group and administration, not just White House group thing? I don't think I would have lost where I am. I don't. So it's
Right.
not.
And the irony of what you're saying is that he was chosen to be the bulwark against that. Right? He was
No, yeah.
chosen in
Let's say
spite of his age because he was the last sane person running for the Democratic
yeah. I mean,
nomination.
it comes down in South Carolina to him versus Bernie. He wins, and he was seen then as a Democrat, not just a work bipartisan, but kind of grounded. Remember, I mean, you got to go back to 2020. Donald Trump attacks Joe Biden on the crime bill because it was too tough on crime.
Right.
I think I mean, I could make my own argument and legitimize certain things about Joe Biden as a different Democrat. And so to me, that's a bit of a kind of, so it was not just his age and tenure, but also kind of, I think, missing the cultural zeitgeist.
The following is a political advertisement. To build a strong Canadian economy, we need a Made in Canada plan. Public service workers power our economy. They support small businesses and keep our supply chain moving. Canada's economic resilience relies on having strong public services. To strengthen our economy, we need to invest in public services. Learn how at forucanada.ca. This message was paid for by the Public Service Alliance of Canada.
All right, we have to do it. Can we talk about Trump?
Okay, hold on. I think the meds just kicked in, so go ahead.
Yeah, okay, great. Good. How would you characterize him? Like, I'm interested in you sort of level setting me because I am quite dark about this guy.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a more phlegmatic perspective that
No, I
that
don't.
would
I
benefit
think
from.
he gives you a lot of material to be dark, pessimistic, both about him, but also about where America is, etc. So let me try to, I mean, I say this, let me say where we start. My grandfather is put on a boat, 13 years old by himself to flee the pogroms, to come to this thing called America. I think if you're an American, you win the lottery ticket of life. The idea that 100 years later we come full circle, that, and I say this by what is one anecdote. There's an elementary school a block down the block from us. Down the block and one block over, but it's kitty corner. You can see it from the front porch. That there's nondescript ICE people in cars, rather in unmarked cars is what I should have said, outside of a school waiting to pick up parents picking up their kids. Now, you want to deal with people that cross the border illegal that ended up here in America committing crimes. And I mean, seriously, I'm 100% for that. Get them out of the prisons, get them out of there. Get them out of here. You want parents to pick up kids from school. You don't want a distance between the front door of the home and the front door of the school. You want these children to have as the safety to learn and the safety to think of their studies, not their safety. Picking up parents in front of a school who are picking up their kids. So, and I say this is also what it means that America has been turned against America. Then I will also, I mean, there was no tear gas being thrown by anybody. There's the city of Chicago throwing tear gas. Now, my wife just ran the marathons we were talking before the show started. In Chicago, there are 53,000 runners, 121 nations represented, all 50 states represented, 1 million people cheering them on. There's no war-torn zone until the federal government showed up. Now, that's just one aspect. I could go on to like 700 other things, so I'm just trying, in the interest of trying to, and I say this also in one other perspective. Nothing China does scares me. It's what America is not doing. And pitting one American against another in this Braveheart, Hunger Games-like war is dangerous to what we have to do. We don't have a day to waste and a person to waste in competing against China. They're 3 times our size, and if we lose an American, we're losing the potential to compete and win. And I say that, and I look at him. Now, I will say, if I had to say a compliment, he does analyze a problem. The problem is his solution is far worse than the problem he's trying to solve. And so, like, take public safety. I happen to think defunding the police is stupid. Sending in 500 National Guard is even dumb. It's hard to be dumb than dumber, but you've achieved it. Both are dumb. Right. You want to solve crime, and somebody I was just telling you, I've been to way too many hospitals visiting police officers or kids, or seeing little yellow ribbons around trees with a picture of somebody in balloons from a senseless weekend of gun violence. Fighting crime is a consistent policy year in and year out, day in and day out, of putting more cops on the beat, getting kids, guns, and gangs off the street. You can go to a city, any city, go to our superintendent here.
Why do liberals think that fighting crime is a conservative thing? Liberals are shitty at this in every country.
That's a side question that will take us hours to somehow, why they think the victim of the perpetrator of crime has to be understood, but the victim should be silenced. I have no idea. Okay, as somebody that helped pass in the crime bill, victims' rights that Dianne Feinstein had put together, I have no idea. My uncle was a cop in Chicago. Okay, so my view is, now, I'm for community policing. For the money you're spending on National Guard, you could hire and recruit 500 officers in the city of Chicago. You could pay for 30,000 kids having after-school programs. You could actually fund more prosecutors dealing with hardened gang criminals and getting those SOBs off the street. Okay, so to me, every mayor can give you a bill of goods. Now, it's not one thing. It's not just cops. Every cop will tell you, and every superintendent will tell you, I need kids in after-school programs, or not when the bell rings. I don't want them on the street. I want them in adult supervised activities. You can get, there's in every city in America, it's also true, maybe a little less in Canada, 2 or 3% of the population is committing well over 50% of the violent crime. Get those people off the streets. Use the U.S. prosecutor to prosecute them for their gun crimes and their moving of drugs and their gang activity. Get them off. The public will support you in that effort. But there's a whole host of things. Rather than saying, I'm going to send the National Guard, say, what is it you need? You're close to the ground. Tell me what you need. So I think both National Guard is a dumb idea, only to be matched in its stupidity for defunding the police.
Is it a dumb idea or is it a dangerous idea? Because when I get conspiratorial, I wonder what those troops are going to do on the ground.
No. I suppose you could say both dangerous and dumb, not one or the other. But look, that's one aspect of Trump. I think another aspect, not a bigger one, he has decided to and has always pit his politics of pitting one America against another America, of this binary choice. And I think it is reckless for the future, reckless for America. We have enough conflict. We don't need the President of the United States adding fuel to the fire.
Did you know that Canada is a global leader in the production of medical isotopes? Canadian isotopes are life-saving tools used around the world every day to diagnose and treat cancers, sterilize medical equipment, and advance medical research. For decades, Canadian nuclear innovation has powered breakthroughs across healthcare, industry, and research. And today, through the Isotopes for Hope campaign, the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council is working to double our isotope production by 2030. Why? Because the world is counting on Canada. Medical isotopes are a promise that patients will get faster, more accurate diagnoses, a promise that hospitals will have the tools they need to precisely treat cancer and other diseases, and a promise that Canada will continue to lead in the development of nuclear technologies that benefit people here at home and around the world. From our CANDU power reactor fleet to our accelerator network, from research labs to hospitals, Canadians are driving innovation that brings hope and saves lives. By supporting Isotopes for Hope, we're not only securing Canada's leadership in the global isotope market, but we're also helping build a healthier future for everyone. The world is counting on us, but we can only rise to this challenge if we work together. It will take all of us, industry, the healthcare sector, governments, and the scientific community, all aligned to maximize the potential of Canadian-made isotopes and ensure that we continue to bring hope to patients when they need it most. Learn more at www.canadianisotopes.ca. Do you know him?
I've talked to him. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're not Facebook friends, I'll tell you that.
No, but I mean, there was a time when he was accepted in polite company, and you see pictures of him with the Clintons and people like that, and around at social functions.
But I don't know him in that context.
You don't know him in that way? Okay.
No. I mean, it's in full advertising, so nobody's shocked. When I was running in 2011 for mayor, there's a big Trump tower here. He sent me financial support.
Okay.
Now, I did announce.
They had to take the name off the Trump Tower in Toronto. Nobody would stay at the hotel.
Yeah, but let me say this. Not to blame my predecessor because it's during the meltdown. It was baked into that build. It was in the midst of the financial crisis. Nothing was getting built. He comes and says he's going to build. And it's a Skidmore Owings building, very beautiful. And except for this big name Trump. Now, he and I get into a fight. And I sue him to take the name off, even though we didn't have standing. And not only sued him to take the name Trump, it's on the Riverwalk. I sued to take the letter T, the letter R. So I sued for the whole name and then individually for every letter. I declared Chicago a Trump-free zone.
Excellent. What do you think, having been inside a White House, in this term, he's the pace of what he's doing seems really fast and really relentless and really disturbing, because you can't stop and analyze any one thing because there's another thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
What kind of machine is behind that? How is that all happening? I've never seen another administration move like this on things.
Well, first of all White Houses take on the personality and the character of that president. Okay. I mean, I have this famous, I'll tell you a story. So I'm responsible for passing in the White House for Bill Clinton, the assault weapon ban. We're trying to pass it in the House of Representatives. President, it's a Sunday night. The vote's going to be Wednesday. Amy, I sleep. Those were the days you still had landlines. I sleep next to the phone. Amy sleeps over here. So at 10 o'clock, I get a call around that time from the White House operator. Says, Mr. Emanuel, the president would like to talk to you. I sit out, and he wants names Sunday night. That's Clinton's hour. He wants names of who to call because this thing is. If we end up passing it by one vote, this thing is on the bubble. And so I give him 6 names. In the middle of the call, I going through the list. Amy falls asleep. 3 a.m, I get another call. It's the President of the United States. Now, Clinton used to work to 4 a.m. And I get a call, White House operator, Mr. Emanuel. Yeah, I can barely open it. The president would like to sit out. And he reports in on the 6 that I gave him, reached them all. And he'd like another 6. I said, Mr. President, it's 3 a.m. Everybody else, I said, no. Now, at the time in which I tell him no, Amy wakes up and goes, who are you talking to? And I put my hand on her chest. I said, it's the president. She thinks, because she went to sleep in the first, that it's one phone call. She goes, I'd say, tell him to go to bed. It's 3 a.m. And, I gave him the list, et cetera, et cetera. But that was, you knew, I used to say, you want to get Clinton to get to a yes? Sunday, college football, New York Times crossword puzzle, and there was one other activity. And he's sitting around, and if you call him, he wants to get you off the phone, you'll get a yes. So you will get a yes. You got to be right at the peak hour of college football and the New York Times crossword puzzle, the Sunday being the hardest. You can get a yes out of him and say, here's what I got. Boom. So every White House takes on the culture. This president likes kinetic energy. Obama liked, 10 to 11 is this, ends at 11, not 11:01, 11 to 12 we're doing this or whatever. It takes on the personality of the president. I think they have, I think like everything else, it's a strength because you say you can't focus on it and deal with X and make it run a point through. It's also a weakness. The weakness is the American people are already exhausted. It's 9 months and they're exhausted, and you can see it in the numbers. He's running around creating all these problems. I always remind people as it relates to the midterm, Democrats are filled with anger. Swing voters that are the most important for us to take back the House are uncomfortable, disquieted by an unchecked, untethered Donald Trump. So the more it's kinetic, yes, you can't focus on it, but it only reinforces to the swing voter that are essential for 2026. Whoa, wait a second. And so they want a speed bump. They want a check. They want somebody that will stop this chaos. So the chaos is bad and good for him. And it's the same thing, same time.
Last week, we heard from our original sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association, or OREA, about the need to reform the province's rental housing system to rebalance the interests of both landlords and tenants. One way to do that is by creating modernized legislation for today's rental market. The Residential Tenancies Act, or RTA, is the legislation meant to set fair rules for the rental system to protect both landlords and tenants. However, the RTA hasn't been significantly updated in almost 20 years, and major gaps have emerged, meaning neither side is being well served. Queen's Park has signaled that it is open to changing the RTA, and OREA wants to see stronger penalties against those using bad faith evictions, more resources to educate landlords and tenants on their rights, and equal treatment under the Act that is inclusive of all families. To read OREA's full list of recommendations, offering a clear path toward a rental market that works for everyone, go to orea.com/fairrentals. So let's just run out what you said there about the polls, because his polling numbers are bad. And you can look forward to the midterms and say, well, he's going to get lose seats in the midterms and he's going to get checked there. And then we just have to wait 2 years and it's over. So it's sort of like this too shall pass, and it's a passing. Or do you see, is that how it's going to unfold, or is there something darker here? Because let me just lay it out. I don't have personally any confidence that the midterms are free and fair elections, much less 2028, the way things are going. Like, I think the moment is now, not 2028.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the midterms are. So before you get to the midterms, you have the New Jersey and Virginia governor's race. I just came back from having helped the candidate in New Jersey. I did 3 events for her, and I'm going back in 2 weeks. And I've done that for the candidate in Virginia. So I would say to you, if the Democrats win both of those governors' races and expand their kind of membership in the Virginia House of Delegates, that's the first day, the beginning of the end. Second is Donald Trump knows what a Democratic Congress is. That would put also a finer point on his last 2 years that are, because you would have a congressional wing and you'd have a gavel.
Yep.
You have every right to think about, well, what about an election? What about a fair election? What about seating these members when they win? Whether they'll do that. They have shown both through redistricting and other things, like not seating the woman from Arizona who won, that they are willing to do things that are not by the book.
Yeah.
That said, we have one political system. My analysis on this, Mr. Herle Burly, is corporate America has proven to be feckless on principle.
Completely.
Okay. Second, the Republicans in Congress have made corporate America look principled. They have done things that no other Congress from both parties on their own president has ever done. They have just fallen in line and abdicated the responsibility of an equal branch of government. And yelling more of them to do it, not going to happen. They have basically decided to throw in the towel. They're not a senator. They're not a congressman. They're not a chairman of a committee. They are basically just pawns. And then third, well, I think the lower court has been done their job. The Supreme Court is in cahoots with the upending of the constitutional system of the United States of America. So it's down to the American people to be the thin blue line. Now, I'm not one to be glass half full. I am Jewish after all, so glass is always half empty. I would just tell you I have confidence in the American people. I have confidence in their judgment. I have confidence that in given the choice, these guys will try to rig the system. But if you look at our politics, when one party controls both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, there's a law of physics that takes place. High turnout by the party out of power. Independents break 2-1 for the party out of power. And the incumbent party has a low turnout. So far, as of this taping, in every special election, in every primary, that math has played out. You look at Sioux City, Iowa, a district Donald Trump won by 10 points, flipped 11 points to the Democrat side. That's a 21-point swing. You look at the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, a state he won, played out exactly like that. So between now and November 2026, a long time, a lot can change. I don't think the economics change. I don't think Donald Trump's personality change. And I don't think the Republicans all of a sudden find their voice. So I think the outlines of an election that is like historic midterms, the basic fundamentals are in place. A lot of time to go, but fundamentals are there.
Right. But we have to make sure they're legit.
No, I'm not. Listen, I mean, you say that. Let me tell you one thing that I'm scared about. So who runs the machines? Old Dominion. You know, they just got sold to a private equity controlled by a very partisan Republican. So you're thinking about National Guard, as you should. You're thinking about other things, Leland.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the machines.
Yeah.
So
let's say he's defeated. Let's say it goes well, and in 2028 he's gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Does America go back to the old normal, or what is the new normal? Does somebody stand up and say, "Listen, world, we're really sorry about that"?
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of all Americans, I can promise you that isn't going to happen again, or what?
I think I would not say restore. I think we're on a process of restoration, not restoring, rather rejuvenation is probably the right word. And what I mean by that is there are things that need to be fundamentally reformed, changed, improved upon, and not just, I'll give you one cultural thing. Democrats always defended rules. Well, how about defending results? How about getting something done? One of the things that Donald Trump showed is that people were frustrated with not just the pace of government, that it was just always an argument, and he's ready to move. He's ready to break through things. That gets to something where people realize that we were suffocating. But I also think, I'll give you an example, something I'm there for. I believe in plussing up our basic funding of science and research. But there's got to be changes in it because we were spending money covering universities when they were supposed to be covering money. We were doing kind of peer review that has to be reviewed, has to be looked at again. Is that's the best way to get kind of the product out of science? So the idea that we're going to hit the reset button is not what I would say. And I think the biggest thing culturally is we got to stop a politics of Hunger Games. And I say this to you because there will be a lot of elements of the party that will say, okay, they did it this way. We're going to do the same and we're going to turn. And you're going to turn our politics back into, and I think that will be detrimental to this great project called the United States of America. And it will be very bad. And it will be hard to resist because once you take a genie out of the bottle, which is what Trump has done, and which is this idea of the executive power has all power, the first among all three equal branches of government. Once you take that genie out, it's hard to go back. So it can't just be, we're sorry to the world. You know, the truth of the matter, if you're thinking of the world, say this and probably this will be you'll try to end the interview right around about now. Look,
it's impossible for you to say anything more offensive than the U.S. ambassador says every day. So
yeah, well, let me say this, Cam. You haven't been spending the money you should have been spending on defense.
Correct.
We've been carrying you. Okay? And I say that not in a hostile way, in the sense that you've been basically slumming it.
Yeah.
But you haven't carried your weight. You basically allowed us to carry. And here's the other thing. That's on you and it's on us because we let you do that. We let you not get to 2% of GDP towards defense. We let you basically not participate at the full length of your partnership. Have you fought shoulder to shoulder with America in every war America has fought in the last century? Yes, 100%. We're lucky to have you as a neighbor and a friend, but you got to uphold your part of that friendship, and we should demand it. Now, there's things that we have done that you could say the same things on us,
but friends can say. Wait a second. Friends can say what you're saying. Okay,
I agree.
And should have said that, and we should. And
Dr. Herle Burly,
Canada's acknowledging this now, but
yes,
Trump doesn't want to be our friend.
I'm not defending him.
Yeah.
When I'm using this as an example to the point, which is when you say get back. No, I don't want to go back. I want to build to the future. So my attitude is I'm not looking at the rearview mirror. I don't want to hit reset and just go backwards. I want to go to the future. I think you've come to the conclusion you have an obligation to the international system, to the friendship, to do certain things that are different. And we have that as your friend also. And we're lucky to have you as our neighbor. But that neighbor requires both trust and partnership. And we got to do that.
Right. The United States right now, I think, you are an ambassador, so you know better. But it feels to me...
Doesn't this look like diplomat?
like people all over the world see the United States as a purely transactional thing now. Yes. There are no friendships. There are no relationships.
Yeah.
There is nothing you can count on or rely on other than you need to give the U.S. the best deal it can get or it'll go somewhere else. Okay?
You're not going to get me to sit here and say that, as I used to say on the Congress floor, you're firm in your opinion. It's your principles you're flexible on. Okay? I'm not for a transactional America. Yeah. I don't think when it comes to the democratic process, you can be transactional about it. I don't think when it comes to America being that beacon of hope that beacon of freedom and that sense of the individual as something to be, and self-determination and the individual self-determination to be upheld, protected, and nurtured, I wouldn't abandon that. Now, are we perfect in executing it? No. But I come to this one conclusion with 2 out of my 3 children in the National Armed Forces. Being an American means I won the lottery ticket of life. And if people rely on America, we are the benchmark for the rest of the world on every value. And I think abandoning that, turning your back on that, means you're turning your back on being an American.
So, what kind of Democrat wins in 2028?
Well, look, here's what I would say. In 2024, we didn't have a primary.
Right.
In 2028, you're going to have Baskin and Robbins, 31 flavors, brother. And
Right.
I'm going to be the chocolate mint. Okay? That's what, if I decide to do this, that's what. So I don't, look, I think there's a lesson. I've written about this. You know, President Obama in the primary took on the idea of parenting, fatherhood, and his own pastor, Father Right. Bill Clinton, people forget this, the #1 advertising issue, end welfare as you know it. He was a different Democrat when it related to crime, welfare reform, parental responsibility. John Kennedy had to go to Texas to give a speech that he wouldn't be a Catholic president, but a president who was Catholic. So the cultural landscape, we need to get right with the American people, that we understand middle-class economics and middle-class values. A lot of people in our party, you said this around crime, don't want to talk about, but the idea that you're going to scream as loud as you can about, we're going to give you this free, we're going to give you this free. If they think you're out on a cultural island on a little iceberg floating along the Arctic. I mean, I give you an example. 2 weeks ago, the NAEP scores came out, and 2/3 of our kids can't do reading and math at grade level. And nobody's talking about it, but a discussion about whether boys who are transgender can participate in girls' sports or whether you can have access to this bathroom, but you don't talk about access to a bathroom, but you don't talk about classroom excellence. We lost it. We lost the plot, and we got punished for it. So, you know, my joke is, from the kitchen table to the family room, the only room we did well in the house was the bathroom. And it's the smallest room in the house. So I think you got to get grounded, and you got to look and act grounded. And not only look and act, you should be grounded. Now, look, in 2016, when I was mayor, I dealt with bathroom access. I didn't make it the core issue. Graduation rates were my core issue. I dealt with it. I'm going to be a party of acceptance, but I will not be a party of advocacy.
Right.
We'll build a culture of acceptance. Everybody counts, but it is not ground zero of life. So I think and I think then fundamentally, my kids are going to be okay. They come from a loving family, good education, grounded with values. And they're going to have access to the American dream. They didn't graduate with debt. They're able to go achieve and start and write their own course of their life.
Right.
The American dream has turned into the American nightmare. Kids are graduating college, making 3 times their parents made, but living in the basement, and they can't afford a home. Parents are taking money out of their 401ks that are spent for retirement to cover the cost of their paycheck because the paycheck's not good enough. My dad, when he was a pediatrician, used to call somebody else for a second opinion. Today, the second opinion is some prick on the other line of an insurance company telling you can't have that procedure, you can't have that medication.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. And it's turned into a nightmare. You used to strive to get to the American middle class. Today, you struggle to stay in it, and it's turned into being the rest of America's gotten the shaft rather than a shot.
Right.
So to me, grounding yourself both in middle-class economics and middle-class values is core to winning the confidence of the voters. That's what I believe. Okay?
Trump has a clear answer to that, though, which is that it's these trade deals that you were part of and that I was part of in Canada that sold out the middle class and that he's bringing it back.
Yeah. Well, as I like to remind, first of all, I think the bigger threat is China. And as I like to, and the truth is, we allowed Battle Creek, Michigan to fight Beijing on its own. had we invested in America and in not only America but Americans, Battle Creek would be Beijing. Beijing did Beijing's job. Battle Creek, America did not do Battle Creek right.
Awesome. It's a great note on which to end. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed talking to
Why
you.
don't you
Hope
know
our
what?
paths cross
One of the
again.
things that when I went to college, my first girlfriend in college was from Mississauga.
Oh yeah.
Proud. So I'm in there, brother. I'm for you. See you later.
Great to see you. Thanks. I want to thank all of you Herle Burly-ites who watch this show, Rahm Emanuel for being with us, and the sponsors who make this show possible. See you next week with more of the Herle Burly.
Herle Burly.